Picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're lying in bed, your mind racing with worries about tomorrow's presentation, next month's bills, or that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Your heart pounds as you replay every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. You feel powerless, overwhelmed, trapped in a prison of your own anxious thoughts. Now imagine if I told you that nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor faced similar sleepless nights, wrestling with the weight of an entire empire on his shoulders, yet he discovered a way to transform that mental chaos into unshakable inner strength. What if the very habits that helped Marcus Aurelius lead one of history's greatest civilizations could help you master your own mind and build the kind of mental fortitude that makes you virtually unstoppable? The ancient Stoics weren't just philosophers sitting in ivory towers debating abstract concepts. They were warriors, emperors, and slaves who faced real adversity, real pain, and real challenges that would break most people. Yet they developed a system of daily practices so powerful that their wisdom has survived millennia and continues to transform lives today. These weren't men who lived easy lives and preached from comfort. Marcus Aurelius wrote his most profound insights while campaigning on brutal battlefields. Seneca navigated the treacherous politics of Nero's court. Epictetus was born into slavery and endured unimaginable hardship. These were people who understood suffering intimately, and from that understanding, they forged mental habits that could withstand any storm. What you're about to discover isn't just ancient wisdom gathering dust in old books. These are the daily practices that separate the mentally strong from those who crumble under pressure. These are the habits that will transform you from someone who reacts to life's challenges into someone who responds with wisdom, clarity, and unshakable inner peace. By the end of this journey together, you'll possess the same mental tools that enabled ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things, not despite their circumstances, but because of how they chose to meet them. The first habit that mentally strong people practice daily is something the Stoics called the discipline of perception, and it begins the moment you wake up. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone to flood your mind with other people's problems, opinions, and manufactured urgency, you take control of your first thoughts. Marcus Aurelius, who could have awakened each morning to the luxury and comfort befitting an emperor, instead began each day by reminding himself of life's fundamental truths. In his personal journal, which we now know as Meditations, he wrote to himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But this wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. He was training his mind to expect difficulty so that when it came, he wouldn't be caught off guard or emotionally reactive. This morning practice of mental preparation isn't about becoming cynical or expecting the worst. It's about developing what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Picture a skilled general before battle, not hoping for easy victory, but preparing for every possible challenge his army might face. He studies the terrain, anticipates the enemy's moves, and ensures his soldiers are ready for whatever comes. This is exactly what you're doing when you begin each day, by mentally rehearsing potential difficulties. You're not inviting problems into your life, you're building the mental resilience to handle them with grace when they inevitably appear. When Seneca was exiled to the harsh island of Corsica, stripped of his wealth and position, he could have spent his days bitter and resentful. Instead, he used this time to deepen his philosophical practice, writing letters that would inspire generations. He understood that external circumstances, no matter how challenging, could never touch his inner freedom unless he allowed them to. This is the power of controlling your perception. You begin to see that most of what disturbs your peace isn't actually happening to you, it's happening in your interpretation of events. That traffic jam isn't a personal attack on your schedule, it's simply cars moving slowly. That criticism from your boss isn't a judgment on your worth as a person, it's information you can use to improve your work or simply disregard if it's unfounded. The second daily habit of the mentally strong is what Epictetus called the dichotomy of control, and it's perhaps the most liberating concept you'll ever encounter. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks everywhere you go. Some of these rocks represent things you can actually influence, your actions, your responses, your effort, your attitude. But most of the rocks represent things completely outside your control, other people's opinions, the weather, traffic, the past, the future, the economy, politics, whether people like you or not. Now imagine someone telling you that you could set down that backpack and only carry the rocks that actually belong to you. This is exactly what happens when you truly understand and practice the dichotomy of control. Epictetus knew this principle intimately because he lived it under the most extreme circumstances. Born into slavery, he had no control over where he lived, what work he did, or even whether he would eat each day. His master once twisted his leg so severely that it left him permanently disabled. Yet, in these conditions of complete external powerlessness, Epictetus discovered the one realm where he was absolutely free, his mind. He could choose his thoughts, his responses, his interpretations of events. No one could touch this inner sanctuary unless he opened the door and invited them in. This realization transformed him from a victim of circumstance into one of history's most influential teachers of human freedom. When you practice this habit daily, you begin each challenging situation by asking yourself one simple question. Is this something I can control or influence? If the answer is yes, you take appropriate action. If the answer is no, you practice the art of letting go. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent to outcomes. It means channeling your energy only toward what you can actually affect. You can't control whether you get the job, but you can control how well you prepare for the interview. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control how authentically and kindly you treat them. You can't control the outcome of your medical test, but you can control how you care for your health and how you respond to whatever news comes. This practice becomes particularly powerful during moments of intense stress or frustration. When you feel that familiar surge of anger or anxiety, pause and examine what's really bothering you. 9 times out of 10, you'll discover you're trying to control something that was never yours to control in the first place. That person who cut you off in traffic, not your responsibility. That rude comment someone made about your appearance, their opinion, not your worth. The stock market's performance this week, completely outside your influence. When you consistently redirect your attention from what you cannot control to what you can, you reclaim enormous amounts of mental and emotional energy that you can then invest in actually improving your life. The third habit that separates the mentally strong from everyone else is the practice of negative visualization, and it might be the most counterintuitive yet powerful tool in the Stoic arsenal. While most people spend their time fantasizing about perfect outcomes and then feel devastated when reality falls short, the Stoics deliberately imagined losing what they valued most. This wasn't masochistic pessimism, it was strategic wisdom. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would periodically live as if he were poor, eating simple food, wearing rough clothes, sleeping on hard surfaces. He wasn't punishing himself, he was building immunity to fortune's reversals and cultivating gratitude for what he had. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the world, regularly contemplated his own mortality and the temporary nature of all earthly things. In his private writings, he reminded himself that his empire, his family, his very life were borrowed gifts that could be recalled at any moment. This practice didn't make him morbid or depressed, it made him present. When you truly understand that everything you have is temporary, you stop taking it for granted and start appreciating it deeply. You hug your children a little longer, you notice the beauty in ordinary moments, you express gratitude for simple pleasures like a warm meal or a comfortable bed. But negative visualization serves an even more practical purpose. When you mentally rehearse potential losses or setbacks, you're building emotional resilience for when they actually occur. The person who has never imagined losing their job is completely unprepared when layoffs come. They panic, despair, and make poor decisions from a place of fear. But the person who has regularly visualized this possibility has already begun developing contingency plans and emotional coping strategies. They're not happy about the loss, but they're not destroyed by it either. They can respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. This practice extends to every area of life. Imagine your relationship ending, not because you want it to, but so you appreciate your partner more deeply and work harder to nurture what you have. Visualize your health failing, not to invite illness, but to motivate yourself to take better care of your body while you can. Picture losing your current lifestyle, not to attract poverty, but to reduce your attachment to material things and increase your gratitude for present abundance. The Stoics understood that suffering often comes not from what happens to us, but from the gap between our expectations and reality. When you regularly imagine things going wrong, you narrow that gap and reduce the shock when life doesn't go according to plan. The fourth daily habit of mentally strong people is the evening review, a practice that transforms every day into a learning opportunity and every mistake into wisdom. Seneca ended each day by examining his thoughts, actions, and responses, like a general reviewing the day's battle. He didn't do this to torture himself with guilt or regret, but to extract lessons and plan improvements. In his letters, he wrote about lying in bed each night and putting his day on trial, cross-examining his decisions and identifying areas for growth. This wasn't self-flagellation, it was self-development. Picture a master craftsman at the end of a long day in his workshop. He doesn't simply put down his tools and walk away. He examines the work he's completed, noting what went well and what could be improved. He cleans and maintains his tools, preparing them for tomorrow's work. He might sketch out plans for the next day's projects, building on what he learned from today's successes and failures. This is exactly what the evening review accomplishes for your character and mental strength. You're not just living your life, you're actively crafting it. The practice is beautifully simple, yet profoundly transformative. As you prepare for sleep, you mentally walk through your day from beginning to end. When did you respond with wisdom versus react with emotion? What triggered your anger? And how might you handle similar situations differently? Where did you act courageously, and where did fear hold you back? What brought you joy, and how can you invite more of that into tomorrow? You're not judging yourself harshly, you're observing with the compassionate curiosity of a scientist studying an interesting specimen. Marcus Aurelius filled 12 books with these nightly reflections, creating one of history's most powerful guides to practical wisdom. His meditations weren't written for publication, but as a private dialogue with himself, a daily practice of self-examination and philosophical reflection. Reading his thoughts is like overhearing the most powerful man in the world coaching himself to be better, holding himself accountable not to external authorities, but to his own highest principles. He asked himself tough questions. Did I act justly today? Did I show compassion to those who needed it? Did I let my ego drive my decisions, or did I act from wisdom? This habit creates a powerful feedback loop in your life. Instead of repeating the same mistakes unconsciously, you begin to recognize patterns and make deliberate changes. You notice that you always get defensive when criticized, so you start practicing receiving feedback with curiosity instead of resistance. You observe that you feel most peaceful when you start your morning with meditation, so you prioritize that practice. You realize that certain people consistently drain your energy, while others inspire you to be your best self, so you adjust your relationships accordingly. The evening review transforms you from someone who simply experiences life into someone who actively learns from it and shapes it with intention. The fifth habit that mentally strong people practice daily is the discipline of desire, which the Stoics considered the foundation of human freedom. While most people are enslaved by their wants, constantly chasing the next thing they believe will make them happy, the mentally strong have learned to want what they have and find contentment in the present moment. This doesn't mean becoming complacent or losing all ambition. It means understanding the difference between preferences and needs, between working toward goals and being enslaved by them. Epictetus taught this principle through a simple but profound metaphor. He said that we should approach our desires like archers approaching their target. A skilled archer aims carefully, draws the bow with proper technique, and releases the arrow with focus and intention. But once the arrow leaves the bow, the archer has done everything within their control. Whether the arrow hits the bullseye depends on factors beyond their influence: wind, the movement of the target, the quality of the arrow. The wise archer is satisfied with shooting well, regardless of where the arrow lands. This is how we should approach all our goals and desires, giving our best effort while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. Seneca, despite his enormous wealth, practiced voluntary poverty regularly to maintain his freedom from material desires. He understood that the person who needs very little is far richer than the person who has much but wants more. He would spend days eating only bread and water, sleeping on the floor, wearing simple clothes, not as punishment, but as training. He was strengthening his ability to be content with less, ensuring that his happiness didn't depend on maintaining his luxurious lifestyle. This practice gave him tremendous peace of mind, because he knew that even if he lost everything, he would still be fundamentally okay. This discipline becomes especially important in our modern world of constant advertising and social media comparison. Every day you're bombarded with messages designed to make you dissatisfied with what you have and desperate for what you don't have. The new car, the bigger house, the perfect relationship, the ideal body, the dream job, they're all dangled before you as keys to happiness. But the Stoics understood that this is a rigged game. There will always be something newer, bigger, better, more exciting just beyond your reach. The only way to win is to stop playing. When you practice the discipline of desire, you begin to appreciate what you already have, instead of constantly focusing on what's missing. Your current home becomes a sanctuary, rather than a stepping stone to something better. Your present job becomes an opportunity to develop skills and serve others, rather than a prison you're desperate to escape. Your relationships deepen because you're fully present with people, instead of always wondering if there's someone better out there. This doesn't mean you stop growing or pursuing meaningful goals. It means you pursue them from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, from contentment rather than desperation. The sixth daily habit of mentally strong people is the practice of memento mori, the regular contemplation of death. Before you dismiss this as morbid or depressing, understand that the Stoics viewed death not as an enemy to be feared, but as a teacher to be consulted daily. Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself that he was dying, not to become depressed but to become fully alive. When you truly accept that your time is limited, every moment becomes precious, every relationship becomes meaningful, every experience becomes a gift rather than an entitlement. Consider how differently you would live today if you knew with certainty it was your last day on earth. Would you waste time scrolling through social media? Or would you call someone you love? Would you worry about that minor criticism at work, or would you focus on making a positive impact? Would you hold on to that grudge, or would you choose forgiveness? The practice of memento mori brings this clarity to every day without requiring you to actually be dying. It cuts through the trivial and reveals what truly matters. Seneca wrote extensively about death, not because he was obsessed with dying, but because he was passionate about living fully. He pointed out that we often act as if we have unlimited time, postponing important conversations, delaying meaningful experiences, and taking our loved ones for granted. We say we'll travel next year, we'll start that creative project when we have more time, we'll repair that damaged relationship eventually. But death has a way of arriving before we're ready, leaving us with a list of regrets and missed opportunities. The daily practice of remembering your mortality transforms how you spend your time and energy. Petty annoyances lose their power over you because you realize life is too short to waste on things that won't matter in a year, a month, or even a week. You become more generous with your love, more present in your relationships, more intentional about your choices. You stop postponing joy and start creating it in small ways every day. You express gratitude more freely, forgive more readily, and love more deeply because you understand that none of it is guaranteed to last forever. This practice also builds tremendous courage because it removes the fear of death that underlies so many other fears. When you've made peace with your own mortality, you become willing to take meaningful risks, to stand up for your principles, to live authentically even when others disapprove. You realize that the worst thing that can happen to you is not failure or rejection or embarrassment, but reaching the end of your life knowing you never really lived it fully. This understanding liberates you from the prison of other people's opinions and the paralysis of perfectionism. The seventh habit that separates the mentally strong from everyone else is the practice of sympathia, the recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness with all life. While modern culture often promotes radical individualism and competition, the Stoics understood that we are all part of a larger whole, like organs in a single body or notes in a grand symphony. Marcus Aurelius wrote, We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. This isn't just poetic philosophy, it's practical wisdom that transforms how you relate to others and find meaning in your life. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of seeing them as an enemy to be defeated, you recognize them as a fellow human being, probably struggling with their own challenges. When a colleague receives a promotion you wanted, instead of burning with jealousy, you understand that their success doesn't diminish your worth and might even create opportunities for you. When you see suffering in the world, instead of turning away in despair or indifference, you look for ways to contribute to healing and progress, knowing that helping others ultimately helps yourself. This practice begins with small daily acts of consideration and kindness. You hold the door for a stranger, not because you expect anything in return, but because you recognize them as part of your extended human family. You listen more carefully to your friends and family members, not waiting for your turn to speak, but genuinely trying to understand their perspective and experience. You approach disagreements with curiosity rather than defensiveness, recognizing that other people's views, even when you disagree with them, are shaped by experiences and information you might not have. Epictetus, despite being born into slavery and experiencing tremendous personal hardship, never became bitter or misanthropic. He understood that the people who had mistreated him were themselves trapped by their own ignorance and character flaws. This didn't excuse their behavior, but it allowed him to respond with wisdom rather than hatred. He taught that when someone wrongs you, they are actually harming themselves more than they're harming you, because they are damaging their own character and moving further away from wisdom and virtue. The practice of sympathia also extends to your relationship with nature and the larger cosmos. The Stoics saw themselves as citizens not just of their particular city or nation, but of the entire universe. They found meaning and purpose in playing their small but important role in the grand unfolding of existence. This cosmic perspective helps you maintain equanimity during personal setbacks, because you understand that your individual struggles are part of a much larger story that you can't fully comprehend from your limited vantage point. The eighth and final habit that mentally strong people practice daily is the cultivation of virtue as the highest good, the recognition that character is the only true wealth and the only reliable source of happiness. While the world constantly tries to convince you that success, pleasure, recognition, or security will make you happy, the Stoics discovered that these external goods are unreliable and ultimately unsatisfying. Only virtue, the excellence of character expressed through wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, provides lasting fulfillment and unshakable peace. This doesn't mean becoming a moral perfectionist or judging others harshly for their failings. It means committing to continuous growth in character and recognizing that every situation, no matter how challenging or mundane, is an opportunity to practice virtue. When you're stuck in traffic, you can practice patience. When someone treats you unfairly, you can practice forgiveness and justice. When you're facing a difficult decision, you can practice wisdom by considering long-term consequences and acting according to your deepest values rather than immediate impulses. Marcus Aurelius, despite having access to every pleasure and luxury the Roman Empire could provide, found his greatest satisfaction in the daily practice of virtue. He wrote to himself about the joy of acting justly, the peace that comes from self-discipline, the strength that develops through facing challenges with courage. He understood that external circumstances could take away his wealth, his power, even his life, but nothing could touch his character unless he allowed it to be corrupted. Seneca expressed this same truth when he wrote that the person who is virtuous is truly rich, regardless of their material circumstances, while the person who lacks virtue is impoverished no matter how much they possess. He pointed out that we often envy people for their possessions or achievements while remaining blind to their character flaws, their anxiety, their lack of inner peace. But the wise person recognizes that character is the only treasure that can never be stolen, the only investment that always pays dividends, the only achievement that brings lasting satisfaction. This final habit ties together all the others because virtue provides the motivation and framework for every other Stoic practice. You examine your perceptions because you want to see clearly and respond wisely. You focus on what you can control because you want to use your energy virtuously rather than waste it on futile struggles. You practice negative visualization because you want to develop gratitude and resilience. You conduct evening reviews because you want to grow in character. You discipline your desires because you want to be free to act according to your values. You remember your mortality because you want to live with purpose and meaning. You recognize your interconnectedness with others because you want to contribute positively to the world. As we reach the end of this journey together, take a moment to imagine the person you could become if you made these 8 habits a consistent part of your daily life. Picture yourself 6 months from now, walking through your days with unshakable inner peace, responding to challenges with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion, finding joy and meaning in simple moments, contributing positively to everyone you encounter. This isn't fantasy. This is the natural result of practicing what the greatest minds in history discovered about human flourishing and mental strength. The path forward is clear, though not always easy. Start small, perhaps with just one habit that resonates most strongly with you. Maybe you begin each morning by taking control of your first thoughts, or end each day with a brief review of your actions and responses. As that practice becomes natural, add another, then another. Building a daily routine that strengthens your character like physical exercise strengthens your body. Remember that the Stoics weren't born with superhuman mental strength. They developed it through consistent practice over years of applying these principles to real-life challenges. The world needs more people who embody these qualities, individuals who can remain calm in chaos, kind in the face of cruelty, courageous when others retreat into fear. You have the opportunity to become one of these people, to join the ranks of those who have discovered that true strength comes not from external circumstances, but from internal character. The ancient wisdom is available to you right now, waiting to transform your life in ways you can barely imagine. What will you choose? Will you continue to be buffeted by every wind of circumstance, reactive to events beyond your control, searching for happiness in all the wrong places? Or will you begin today to build the kind of mental fortress that no external force can breach, the kind of character that remains unshakable regardless of what life throws your way? The choice, as the Stoics would remind you, is entirely yours to make, and making it is the first step toward the mental strength and inner peace you've been seeking all along.